The morning mist clung to the Afghan mountains like a stubborn secret, refusing to lift even as the sun climbed higher into the pale sky. Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez adjusted his scope for the third time, his weathered hands moving with the precision that came from 15 years of military service. Beside him, his spotter Tommy Chen lay motionless, eyes fixed on the distant valley through his own powerful binoculars. "Still nothing," Tommy whispered, his breath barely disturbing the air between them. They had been in position for 6 hours, waiting for their target to show himself. Intelligence suggested that Commander Khalil Mansour, a high-value Taliban leader, would be moving through this particular mountain pass sometime before noon. The shot would be challenging, nearly 800 meters across difficult terrain with unpredictable wind patterns. Marcus had made tougher shots before, but something felt different about this mission. For the past 3 days, strange reports had been filtering through their forward operating base. Local villagers spoke in hushed tones about a ghost sniper who struck without sound, without flash, without any trace of her presence. The stories seemed impossible, shots made from distances that stretched the limits of modern rifle technology, targets eliminated with surgical precision while leaving no evidence of the shooter's position. "You believe any of that ghost nonsense the locals keep talking about?" Tommy asked, as if reading his partner's thoughts. Marcus shook his head slowly. "Ghosts don't use rifles, kid. Someone's just very good at their job and very good at staying hidden." He paused, adjusting his position slightly. "But, I'll admit, whoever it is has skills that make me nervous." The radio crackled softly in Marcus's ear. "Viper team, this is Overwatch. Target vehicle approaching checkpoint Alpha. 2 clicks out from your position." Marcus felt his heart rate slow as he entered what his instructors had called the zone, that state of perfect calm and focus that separated good snipers from legendary ones. Through his scope, he could see the dust cloud rising from the valley road. A small convoy of 3 vehicles wound its way through the narrow mountain path, moving slowly to avoid the worst of the rocky terrain. "Got visual," Tommy confirmed. Black sedan in the middle, 2 technical trucks as escorts. Counting 8, maybe 9 hostiles. Marcus tracked the convoy's movement, calculating wind speed, bullet drop, and the dozens of other variables that would determine whether his shot found its mark. The sedan would pass through his optimal firing zone in approximately 90 seconds. He controlled his breathing, feeling his pulse steady as years of training took over. But, as the convoy drew closer, something unexpected happened. The lead technical truck suddenly swerved hard to the right, its driver apparently reacting to some unseen threat. The vehicle rolled twice before coming to rest against a boulder, black smoke beginning to rise from its engine compartment. "What the hell?" Tommy muttered, scanning the surrounding ridgelines frantically. "I didn't see any RPG fire, no muzzle flash, nothing." The remaining vehicles had stopped, and armed men began pouring out of them, taking defensive positions behind the trucks. Through his scope, Marcus watched as they searched the mountainsides desperately, clearly unable to identify where the attack had come from. "Viper team, report," came the urgent voice through their radio. "We're seeing heavy activity at your target location." Marcus keyed his mic. Unknown shooter engaged the convoy. "Repeat, we have unknown friendly or hostile forces in the area. Target is still in play but situation is compromised." In the valley below, Commander Mansour emerged from the sedan, his distinctive white turban and ornate AK-47 making him easily identifiable. He was shouting orders at his men, pointing toward various ridge positions where he thought the attack might have originated. This was the shot Marcus had been waiting for, but the tactical situation had become far too complex. Then, as if the mountain itself had decided to intervene, the impossible happened. Commander Mansour, standing in clear view beside his vehicle, suddenly stumbled backward. Marcus watched through his scope as a small hole appeared in the center of the man's forehead, and he collapsed instantly to the rocky ground. "Holy!" Tommy's voice trailed off in shock. "Did you see that? Did you see a muzzle flash? Any indication of where that shot came from?" Marcus swept his scope across every possible firing position within a 2-kilometer radius. Nothing. No smoke, no movement, no glint of sunlight off a scope lens. It was as if the bullet had materialized out of thin air to find its target. Negative on muzzle flash, Marcus reported quietly. No visible shooter position. Target is down, repeat, target is down. The Taliban fighters in the valley were now in complete chaos. Some had taken cover, while others ran aimlessly, unsure which direction to defend against. Marcus realized that whoever had made that shot possessed skills that bordered on the supernatural. The angle, the distance, the complete absence of any firing signature, it defied everything he understood about the science of long-range shooting. "We need to get out of here," Tommy said urgently. "If there's another sniper team operating in this area, we could be in their crosshairs next." But Marcus found himself unable to move, transfixed by what he had witnessed. In 15 years of combat, he had never seen anything like it. The shot had been taken from a position he couldn't identify, at a distance that stretched the limits of possibility, with an accuracy that suggested almost inhuman skill. As they began to pack their equipment, Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. In the dust beside where Commander Mansour had fallen, one of the Taliban fighters was examining a bullet fragment. Even at this distance, Marcus could see that the man was holding it up, studying it with confusion. The round appeared to be of a caliber and design that neither Marcus nor Tommy recognized. "Command, this is Viper Team," Marcus radioed as they prepared to extract from their position. "Mission complete, but we have a significant development. Unknown sniper operating in our area with advanced capabilities. Recommend immediate intelligence assessment." The response came back immediately. "Copy that, Viper Team. Extraction helicopter is en route to your secondary pickup point. Intel wants a full debrief as soon as you're back to base." As they made their way down the mountain, moving carefully to avoid detection by any remaining Taliban forces in the area, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Not by hostile forces, but by whoever had made that impossible shot. The precision, the complete invisibility of the firing position, the apparent use of non-standard ammunition, it all pointed to someone operating with technology and skills far beyond conventional military training. "Sarge," Tommy said quietly as they reached their extraction point, "what if the locals are right? What if there really is something supernatural going on out here?" Marcus checked his watch and scanned the horizon for their helicopter. "I don't believe in ghosts, Chen. But I'm starting to believe that somewhere in these mountains, there's a sniper who might as well be one." The sound of rotor blades filled the air as their extraction bird approached. As they climbed aboard, Marcus took one last look at the ridgelines surrounding the valley. Somewhere out there was a shooter whose abilities challenged everything he thought he knew about his profession. The shot he had witnessed was, by all conventional understanding, impossible. Yet the evidence lay in the dust of that mountain road. Commander Mansour was dead, killed by a bullet fired from a position that apparently didn't exist. During the helicopter ride back to base, Marcus found himself studying every mountain peak, every shadowed crevice, wondering if their mysterious ghost was watching them even now. The thought sent an unexpected chill down his spine. In all his years of combat, he had never encountered an adversary whose capabilities so thoroughly defied explanation. The mountains of Afghanistan had always been full of mysteries and dangers. But now, it seemed, they harbored something entirely new, a sniper whose very existence challenged the fundamental laws of warfare itself. As the helicopter carried them away from the scene, Marcus couldn't help but wonder if their paths would cross again. And, somewhere in the depths of his military mind, a small voice whispered that when that meeting came, he might not be the hunter anymore. He might very well become the hunted, facing an opponent whose skills transcended anything he had ever encountered on the battlefield. The impossible shot had been made, witnessed by two of the military's most experienced snipers, and yet its source remained as invisible as morning mist. The ghost in the mountains had claimed another target, leaving behind only questions and the growing certainty that the rules of engagement in this ancient land had fundamentally changed. The debriefing room at Forward Operating Base Chapman was thick with tension and cigarette smoke despite the no-smoking policy. Colonel Sarah Mitchell sat at the head of a scarred metal table, her sharp eyes moving between Marcus Rodriguez and Tommy Chen as they recounted their morning's experience for the third time. Around the table sat various intelligence officers, ballistics experts, and special operations personnel, all struggling to make sense of what they had heard. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Colonel Mitchell said, tapping her pen against a manila folder. You observed a target elimination from an unknown firing position at a range you estimate to be at least 1,200 meters, with no visible muzzle flash, no sound signature, and no identifiable shooter location.
Marcus nodded grimly. That's correct, ma'am. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like it.
The shot was physically impossible according to everything I know about ballistics and field craft. Dr. James Harrison, the base's senior ballistics expert, leaned forward in his chair. He was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who had spent more time analyzing bullet trajectories than most people spent sleeping. Sergeant Rodriguez, you mentioned that the Taliban fighters were examining what appeared to be bullet fragments.
Did you observe anything unusual about the ammunition?
From our distance, it was hard to be certain, Marcus replied, but the fragments looked larger than standard military rounds, and the Taliban fighters seemed confused by what they were seeing. They were handling the pieces like they'd never encountered that type of ammunition before. Captain Lisa Wong, the intelligence officer assigned to the region, pulled out a tablet and began scrolling through recent reports.
This fits a pattern we've been tracking for the past 6 weeks.
7 high-value targets eliminated under similar circumstances, impossible shots from unidentifiable positions, no trace evidence left behind. She turned the tablet screen toward the group. Each incident occurred in this mountainous region of eastern Afghanistan. The victims included bomb makers, local Taliban commanders, and weapons smugglers. In every case, witnesses reported seeing the target drop with no corresponding muzzle flash or sound signature from any conceivable firing position. Tommy shifted uncomfortably in his chair.
Ma'am, the locals are calling it supernatural.
They say it's a ghost that punishes those who bring violence to their valleys. Colonel Mitchell's expression remained stoic, but Marcus noticed her jaw tighten slightly. Sergeant Chen, I need you to understand that this briefing room deals in facts and evidence, not local superstition. Someone is operating in our area of responsibility with advanced capabilities, and we need to identify them. Dr. Harrison opened a thick folder and spread several photographs across the table.
We've been analyzing ballistic evidence from previous incidents where we were able to recover fragments.
The ammunition appears to be custom manufactured, using materials and designs not found in any known military or civilian catalog. He pointed to a microscopic image of a bullet fragment. The metal composition includes rare earth elements that would be extremely expensive to obtain. The projectile design suggests capabilities far beyond standard sniper ammunition, enhanced penetration, minimal fragmentation, and aerodynamic properties that would extend effective range significantly. Marcus studied the photographs with growing unease.
Doctor, what kind of range are we talking about?
Based on the ballistic properties we've observed, effective lethal range could exceed 2 kilometers, possibly more under ideal conditions.
That's nearly double what the best current military sniper rifles can achieve reliably. The room fell silent as the implications sank in.
A sniper operating at ranges beyond conventional detection, using ammunition that didn't appear in any military database, eliminating targets with surgical precision while remaining completely invisible to trained observers.
Captain Wong broke the silence. We've requested satellite imagery for the timeframes of all known incidents.
The results have been inconclusive. She pulled up another image on her tablet, a satellite photograph of the mountain valley where Marcus and Tommy had been positioned that morning.
This was taken 30 minutes after your reported time of target elimination.
We've analyzed every pixel, every shadow, every possible concealment location. Marcus leaned closer to examine the image. The resolution was remarkable. He could see their own extraction helicopter as a small dot in the distance, and the Taliban vehicles in the valley below were clearly visible. But, despite the satellite's advanced imaging capabilities, there was no trace of another sniper position anywhere in the surrounding terrain. It's like shooting at ghosts that shoot back, Tommy muttered, earning a sharp look from Colonel Mitchell. Dr. Harrison adjusted his glasses and opened another file.
There is one possibility we haven't discussed yet. Advanced military technology that isn't in general circulation. Experimental weapons systems, prototype equipment being field tested. You're talking about our own people? Marcus asked.
Not necessarily our own, but possibly Allied Special Operations units conducting classified missions in the region. The level of technology required for these capabilities would suggest significant research and development resources.
Colonel Mitchell stood and walked to a map of the region mounted on the wall.
Red pins marked the locations of the mysterious sniper incidents, forming a rough pattern across the mountainous terrain. The targeting seems selective, she observed. High-value individuals who pose significant threats to local stability, but the shooter is avoiding opportunities that would result in civilian casualties. She turned back to face the group. This suggests either very sophisticated intelligence gathering or intimate knowledge of local power structures. Our ghost sniper isn't shooting randomly, they're conducting a precision campaign against specific threats. Marcus found himself thinking about the shot he had witnessed. The timing had been perfect, waiting until Commander Mansour was isolated from his men and clearly identifiable.
No collateral damage, no missed shots, no evidence left behind.
It was professional work of the highest caliber.
"Ma'am," he said slowly, "what if we're looking at this backwards?
Instead of trying to find out who's doing this, maybe we should be asking why they're doing it." Captain Wong nodded thoughtfully.
The targets have all been destabilizing influences in the region.
If you remove the supernatural elements and focus on the strategic impact, someone is systematically eliminating threats to local peace and stability.
Which brings us to another question, Colonel Mitchell added. Are we dealing with an ally or an enemy?
The tactical goals seem aligned with our mission objectives, but the methods and capabilities are completely outside our operational framework. Dr. Harrison gathered his photographs back into the folder.
I recommend we establish a monitoring protocol. Enhanced surveillance of the region using multiple platforms, satellite, drone, and ground-based observation.
If this phantom sniper strikes again, we might be able to triangulate their position through coordinated observation. The meeting continued for another hour as the group developed strategies for identifying their mysterious operator. Enhanced patrols, improved communication protocols between units, and coordination with Allied forces operating in the region. But Marcus left the briefing room with more questions than answers. That evening, as he cleaned his rifle in the quiet of the armory, Marcus found himself thinking about the technical challenges involved in the shot he had witnessed. Wind calculation at extreme range required intimate knowledge of local weather patterns.
Bullet drop compensation needed precise range finding and ballistic computation.
Target identification demanded high-quality optics and perfect timing.
Penny for your thoughts?
Tommy appeared beside him, carrying his own cleaning kit. Just trying to work through the mechanics of what we saw, Marcus replied. The shot itself was impressive, but it's everything else that bothers me. The complete absence of a firing signature, the custom ammunition, the perfect intelligence about target movements.
Tommy began disassembling his spotting scope. What if it's not just one person? What if we're dealing with a team using technology we don't understand? Marcus considered this possibility.
A support team with advanced equipment, sophisticated intelligence gathering, and resources that exceeded anything in their own military arsenal. It would explain some of the apparent impossibilities, but it raised even more disturbing questions about who had such capabilities and why they were operating in this particular region. Outside the armory, the Afghan night was clear and cold, with stars visible in stunning clarity above the mountain peaks. Somewhere in that vast landscape, their ghost sniper was probably planning the next move in what appeared to be a carefully orchestrated campaign. Marcus finished cleaning his rifle and locked it away, but he knew that sleep would be difficult tonight. Tomorrow would bring new missions, new patrols, and the constant possibility of another encounter with an adversary whose very existence challenged everything he thought he knew about modern warfare. The investigation was just beginning, but already it was clear that they were dealing with something unprecedented, a sniper whose capabilities transcended conventional understanding and whose motives remained as mysterious as their methods. In the mountains of Afghanistan, the rules of engagement had changed, and Marcus wasn't sure his side was prepared for what that meant. 3 weeks had passed since the impossible shot, and Marcus Rodriguez found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about his profession. The enhanced surveillance protocols had yielded nothing but frustration and more questions. Drone flight showed empty mountainsides, satellite imagery revealed no trace of human presence, and ground patrols reported an almost supernatural quiet in the regions where the ghost sniper had been active. The morning briefing room buzzed with nervous energy as new intelligence filtered in from multiple sources. Colonel Mitchell entered carrying a thick folder and, wearing the expression of someone who had been awake far too long wrestling with problems that refused to make sense. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have developments," she announced, dropping the folder on the table with a heavy thud. "Last night, our phantom sniper struck again.
This time, we had multiple observation posts monitoring the area." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. And
target was Ahmed Nazari, a known IED manufacturer operating out of a compound approximately 15 kilometers northeast of here. The elimination occurred at 0347 hours, range estimated at over 1,500 meters based on the target location and potential firing positions. Dr. Harrison leaned forward eagerly.
"Did we get any sensor data this time? Heat signatures, acoustic readings, anything?" Colonel Mitchell's expression grew even grimmer. "That's the problem, Doctor.
We had thermal imaging covering every ridgeline within 2 kilometers of the target compound. Multiple acoustic sensors positioned to triangulate any gunshot signature.
Motion detectors covering all approach routes."
She opened the folder and spread out a series of thermal images taken throughout the night. These show the target area from 0300 to 0400 hours. You can clearly see Ahmed Nazari moving around his compound, the heat signatures of his guards, even small animals in the surrounding area.
Marcus studied the images carefully.
The thermal resolution was excellent, showing clear human figures as bright white shapes against the cooler background.
"I don't see any other signatures in the potential firing positions." "That's correct, Sergeant.
No thermal indication of human presence anywhere within effective range of the target. Yet at 0347, Ahmed Nazari collapsed with a single gunshot wound to the head."
Tommy Chen looked up from the images with confusion written across his face. "Ma'am, that's physically impossible. You can't hide body heat from thermal imaging, especially not the kind of military-grade equipment we're using."
Captain Wong pulled up additional data on her tablet.
"It gets worse.
The acoustic sensors recorded the impact of the bullet striking the target, but no corresponding muzzle blast or supersonic crack from any direction. It's as if the bullet materialized at the point of impact." Dr. Harrison removed his glasses and cleaned them nervously.
"I've been analyzing the ballistic evidence from last night's incident, and I'm afraid my findings only deepen the mystery."
He produced a small plastic bag containing several metal fragments.
"These are pieces of the projectile that killed Nazari.
The metal composition is unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be a titanium-tungsten alloy with trace elements I can't even identify." Marcus examined the fragments through the plastic. They had an unusual color and texture, almost seeming to shift in the light.
"What kind of performance characteristics would this type of ammunition have?"
Based on preliminary analysis, it would be lighter than conventional rounds but far more durable. Reduced air resistance, enhanced penetration, and minimal fragmentation. But the manufacturing required to produce ammunition like this would cost thousands of dollars per round.
The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the implications.
They were dealing with someone who had access to experimental military technology, unlimited financial resources, and capabilities that challenged the fundamental laws of physics. Colonel Mitchell walked to the map wall where additional red pins had been added over the past 3 weeks.
17 confirmed eliminations in 6 weeks.
Each one a high-value target, each one executed with impossible precision from undetectable positions. She traced a pattern among the pins with her finger.
"But here's something interesting we've just noticed. The targets aren't random, they form a specific geographical pattern.
Our ghost is working systematically through a network of connected individuals." Captain Wong stood and joined her at the map. "Intelligence analysis suggests these targets were all part of a coordinated network planning a major offensive against coalition forces. By eliminating key figures in their command structure, our Phantom has effectively dismantled an entire terrorist cell."
Marcus felt a chill run down his spine.
Someone with access to that level of intelligence coordination would have to be operating with significant resources and official support. That's what worries me, Colonel Mitchell admitted. We're either dealing with an allied special operations unit using technology we don't know about, or we have a hostile force with capabilities that exceed our own. Dr. Harrison opened another file and pulled out a series of photographs.
There's something else. I've been analyzing soil samples from the suspected firing positions. In 3 locations, I've found trace evidence of unusual chemical compounds.
He passed the photographs around the table. These compounds don't match any known military equipment, but they suggest the presence of advanced materials, possibly some form of adaptive camouflage or thermal suppression technology.
Tommy looked up from the photographs with growing alarm. Doctor, are you saying someone has developed technology that can make a sniper completely invisible to our detection equipment? I'm saying that the evidence suggests capabilities far beyond anything in current military inventory.
Thermal suppression, acoustic dampening, and possibly even visual camouflage systems that border on science fiction.
Marcus set down the photographs and tried to process what he was hearing.
Advanced materials, experimental ammunition, impossible shooting capabilities, and technology that made the user essentially invisible to modern surveillance equipment. It painted a picture of an adversary operating with resources and capabilities that seemed almost alien.
Ma'am, he said slowly, what if we're approaching this wrong? Instead of trying to catch our ghost in the act, what if we try to predict their next move?
Colonel Mitchell turned from the map with interest.
Explain your thinking, Sergeant. The targets follow a pattern based on intelligence networks.
If we can identify the remaining members of the terrorist cell, we might be able to position ourselves where the Phantom will strike next. Captain Wong was already working on her tablet. Intelligence has identified 3 remaining high-value individuals who fit the pattern. All within a 50-kilometer radius of previous strikes. She displayed 3 photographs on the screen, 2 men and 1 woman, all known to be involved in planning attacks against coalition forces. Based on movement patterns and known safe houses, any one of them could be the next target.
Dr. Harrison gathered his files with renewed energy. If we can position observation equipment at multiple potential firing positions before the next strike, we might finally get the data we need to understand what we're dealing with. Colonel Mitchell nodded slowly. All right, we're going to set a trap. Sergeant Rodriguez, I want you and Chen to take the northern observation post overlooking the Karmali safe house.
We'll have teams positioned at the other 2 locations with full surveillance packages. Marcus felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. After weeks of chasing shadows and impossibilities, they were finally going to confront their Phantom directly. But the evidence suggested they were facing an adversary whose capabilities exceeded anything in their experience.
Ma'am, he asked quietly, what are our rules of engagement if we actually make contact?
Colonel Mitchell's expression hardened. Until we know whether we're dealing with an ally or an enemy, your mission is observation and intelligence gathering only.
Do not engage unless directly threatened.
As the briefing concluded and teams prepared for deployment, Marcus found himself thinking about the technical challenges they were about to face.
Somewhere in the mountains of Afghanistan was a sniper whose very existence defied explanation.
Advanced technology, impossible skills, and resources that suggested official support from unknown sources. The hunt was intensifying, but Marcus wasn't sure who was the hunter and who was the prey. Tonight, they would finally attempt to corner their ghost and demand answers to questions that had been haunting him for weeks. But, as he checked his equipment and prepared for what might be the most important mission of his career, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered that some mysteries were dangerous to solve. The Phantom sniper had remained undetected for good reason, and forcing a confrontation might reveal truths that would change everything he thought he knew about modern warfare. The mountains were waiting, and somewhere among their peaks and shadows, an impossible adversary was preparing for what might be their final performance.
The mountain air was crisp and still as Marcus Rodriguez settled into his observation position overlooking the Karmali safe house.
3 days had passed since the surveillance teams had taken their positions, and tension was building with each passing hour. Tommy Chen lay beside him, monitoring multiple sensors that Colonel Mitchell had insisted were foolproof: thermal imaging, acoustic detection, motion sensors, and electromagnetic field monitors that would detect even the smallest electronic device. "Contact," Tommy whispered suddenly, his voice tight with excitement. Through his spotting scope, he had identified movement in the valley below. "Target is Rashid Karmali, moving from the main building to the courtyard." Marcus tracked the figure through his rifle scope, confirming the identification. Karmali was one of the 3 remaining high-value targets they had been monitoring, a bomb maker responsible for numerous attacks against coalition forces. According to intelligence reports, he was planning to move to a new safe house within the next 24 hours. "All stations, this is Overwatch," came the voice through their radio.
"Target is confirmed in the open. All sensors are active and recording. Maintain positions and observe."
Marcus felt his heart rate steady as he watched Karmali move through the courtyard below.
If their phantom sniper was going to strike, this would be the perfect opportunity.
The target was exposed, isolated from civilians, and within range of numerous potential firing positions that the surveillance teams had identified and were monitoring.
Minutes passed in tense silence.
The thermal imaging showed no human signatures in any of the suspected sniper positions. Acoustic sensors registered only the normal sounds of the mountain environment. Motion detectors remained inactive except for the occasional bird or small animal. Then, without warning, reality shifted in a way that Marcus would never be able to fully explain. A section of the mountainside that had appeared completely empty suddenly shimmered, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. For just an instant, Marcus caught a glimpse of something that shouldn't have existed: a human figure in what appeared to be a form-fitting suit that bent light around it like water.
"Tommy, are you seeing this?"
Marcus whispered urgently, but his spotter was staring through his own optics with an expression of complete disbelief. The shimmer solidified for perhaps 3 seconds, revealing a woman in her 30s with short dark hair and equipment that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Her rifle was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen: sleek, streamlined, with what appeared to be multiple electronic components integrated into the stock and barrel. She raised the weapon with fluid precision, and Marcus realized he was watching the impossible shot being prepared. The range had to be nearly 1,800 meters, well beyond what any conventional rifle could achieve reliably. Wind conditions were variable, with crosswinds that would challenge even the most experienced marksman. Then, she fired. There was no muzzle flash, no sound, no visible disturbance of the air around the rifle. Marcus watched through his scope as Rashid Karmali, standing in the courtyard below, suddenly stumbled and fell. The shot had found its mark with surgical precision, despite the impossible range and challenging conditions. But, instead of vanishing again, the phantom sniper did something unexpected. She stood up, deactivating whatever camouflage system had concealed her, and began walking directly toward Marcus and Tommy's position. "All stations, we have contact," Marcus radioed quickly.
"Phantom sniper is approaching our position."
"Repeat, contact is approaching our position."
The response came back immediately: "Viper team, maintain position. Do not engage unless threatened. We need intelligence on this contact."
As she approached, Marcus could see more details of her equipment. The suit appeared to be made of some kind of advanced material that actively bent light around the wearer, making her nearly invisible from more than a few meters away. The rifle she carried looked like a hybrid of conventional firearms and advanced electronics, with a barrel that seemed to incorporate some kind of energy focusing system. She stopped approximately 50 meters from their position and called out in clear, unaccented English, "Sergeant Rodriguez, Corporal Chen, I need to speak with you." Marcus felt his blood run cold.
She knew their names, their positions, and, apparently, their mission.
This was far more than just an encounter with an advanced sniper. They were dealing with someone who had access to their operational intelligence.
"How do you know who we are?"
Marcus called back, keeping his rifle ready but not directly aimed at her. "Because I've been watching your unit for weeks, analyzing your capabilities, and waiting for the right moment to make contact." She began walking closer, her hands visible and away from her weapons. "My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez, and I work for a project that officially doesn't exist." Tommy whispered urgently into his radio, updating their controllers on the developing situation. Marcus kept his attention focused on the approaching figure, trying to process the implications of what she had just revealed. She stopped about 20 meters away, close enough for normal conversation but far enough to avoid appearing threatening. "I know you have questions, Sergeant Rodriguez. The impossible shots, the advanced technology, the complete invisibility to your surveillance equipment. I'm here to provide answers." Marcus lowered his rifle slightly but remained alert. "Start talking, Doctor. What project? Who do you work for?" Elena Vasquez smiled, and Marcus noticed that despite her advanced equipment and superhuman marksmanship skills, she looked tired and somewhat sad. "I work for a joint program between DARPA and several allied intelligence agencies. We've been developing next-generation military technology for special operations in denied areas." She gestured toward her equipment. "The camouflage system uses metamaterials that bend electromagnetic radiation around the wearer. The rifle incorporates electromagnetic acceleration technology that eliminates traditional ballistic signatures. Both systems are still experimental, which is why they're not in general military inventory." Tommy looked up from his radio with confusion. "Ma'am, if you're working for our own people, why all the secrecy? Why not coordinate with local commands?" "Because this is a black program, Corporal. Officially, neither I nor this technology exist. The targets I've been eliminating were part of a terrorist network that had penetrated our intelligence systems. They knew about conventional military operations before they happened." Marcus felt pieces of the puzzle beginning to fit together. "So you were conducting parallel operations to eliminate threats that our normal intelligence couldn't touch safely?" "Exactly. Every target I eliminated was someone who posed an immediate threat to coalition forces but couldn't be reached through conventional operations without compromising ongoing intelligence assets." She paused and looked directly at Marcus. "Including a planned ambush of your unit that was supposed to take place 2 days from now. Rashid Karmali was coordinating the attack using intelligence obtained from a source inside your command structure." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. Their ghost sniper hadn't been a mysterious adversary, she had been protecting them from threats they didn't even know existed. The impossible shots, the advanced technology, the careful target selection, it had all been part of a sophisticated counterintelligence operation. "Dr. Vasquez," Tommy said quietly, "why are you revealing this to us now? Why break operational security?" Elena's expression grew even more serious. "Because the program is being shut down. Political pressures, budget constraints, and concerns about the ethical implications of deploying technology this advanced without broader oversight." She unslung her rifle and set it on the ground between them. "This is my final mission. After tonight, the technology will be recalled, the program will be classified beyond top secret, and, officially, none of this will have happened." Marcus stared at the weapon lying in the dust. Even inactive, it seemed to radiate an aura of advanced capability that made his own equipment feel primitive by comparison. "What happens to you?" "I return to my laboratory, Dr. Elena Vasquez, theoretical physicist, working on abstract materials research. The sniper, the impossible shots, the phantom in the mountains, she never existed." Tommy was already on his radio, reporting the conversation to their command structure. Marcus could hear the surprise and confusion in the radio chatter as the information was relayed up the chain of command. "Sergeant Rodriguez," Elena said, picking up her rifle and beginning to check her equipment, "I want you to understand something. The shots you witnessed weren't impossible, they were just beyond current conventional capability. Technology like this will eventually become standard military equipment. When it does, the nature of warfare will change fundamentally." She activated her camouflage system, and once again her form began to shimmer and fade. "Someday, every sniper will have capabilities like mine. Someday, the impossible shots will become routine. But, until then, some mysteries are better left unsolved." Marcus watched as she became increasingly transparent, like a mirage dissolving in the heat. "Doctor, one last question. How many others are there like you?" Her voice came from the empty air where she had been standing moments before.
More than you might think, Sergeant. But fewer than the world's problems require. And then, she was gone, leaving only the mountain wind and the distant sound of helicopters approaching their position. Marcus knew that extraction teams were inbound, that there would be extensive debriefings, and that official reports would classify this encounter in ways that would effectively erase it from history. But he also knew that somewhere in the world, other phantoms were operating with technology that bordered on magic, conducting missions that officially never happened, protecting people who would never know they had been saved. As the helicopters grew closer, Marcus took one last look at the mountainside where Elena Vesquez had demonstrated capabilities that redefined the possible. The war in Afghanistan would continue, but he now understood that some battles were being fought with weapons and tactics that existed in a realm beyond conventional military understanding. The impossible shot had been witnessed, the phantom sniper had been encountered, and the truth had been revealed. But, like all the most important truths, it would remain forever classified, filed away in archives that most people would never know existed. The mountains kept their secrets, and the ghosts that walked among them continued their invisible war against enemies that conventional forces could never reach. Marcus Rodriguez had seen the future of warfare, and it was both more wondrous and more terrifying than he had ever imagined.